Apologize for being late. We've met in closed session. We have a quorum, so let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start with student perspectives.
Actually, Dr. Kupka, our student perspectives are embedded into the first report about one-to-one, since we will have students from north and south making part of the presentation.
Yeah.
Terrific.
So who is going to start the one-to-one presentation? Thank you, Ms. Zaccardi.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McDonald. Tonight's presentation, we're going to focus on several areas, and as Dr. McDonald said, we have some teachers that have joined us this evening, as well as students from both north and south. So our focus for tonight's presentation will be, again, reviewing the vision and implementation. You may recall the vision, as we've spoken about that a couple of times before, how it's impacting teaching and learning, the professional development that we've been doing for really the last couple of years, some supports we have in place for students and teachers, and then, of course, technology support as well. So with that, I'm just going to say a few words about the vision. And again, you may recall this from our last couple of presentations. Our vision for one-to-one learning in District 99 really focuses on students being collaborative, reflective, and empowered. And some examples of that really would be how we expect it to transform their learning. So students, of course, engaging in activities where they're working together. Those authentic learning experiences that we've talked about before and related to our ELA, New Learning Standards, and how those goals go hand in hand with that. Assessment and students being reflective about their learning. Students being able to do things that they couldn't do before. That empowerment meaning that students are able to really explore things that are meaningful to them, and opportunities that allow learning to go beyond the classroom. So really those opportunities for students, not just to do the things they've always been able to do, but take it to another level. And of course for teachers to create environments where it's conducive to students being reflective, empowered, and collaborative. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to a couple of teachers from North High School. Joanne Purcell. Joanne is a math teacher at North High, although she also taught for, I believe, a year or so at South High. Joanne is currently a math coach at North High, so she has a lot of experience, obviously, teaching our new integrated curriculum. She also should be complimented for, she actually went down to Springfield a couple years ago, I should say, for me, and served on a panel representing District 99 on an integrated math panel. So we are quite honored to have her with us today. And then I'd also like to introduce Nader Najjar. He is a first-year teacher to us, but comes with experience from CPS and from private schools. He is a special education teacher who is co-teaching our extended class of Math 1, Math 2, and then he also is co-teaching in consumer education. And so Joanne and Nader will talk to us a little bit about the impact on student learning in terms of their classroom.
Okay. I'll start off talking about Google Classroom. And Google Classroom is probably the cornerstone of a lot of the initiative that teachers use in their classroom. It allows us to go paperless in a lot of ways. It allows us to store documents for the students. It allows us to post notes that we've created for students so we don't have to print as much. It also allows students to collaborate with each other in ways that we could never do before. So it's more than just replacing paper, but it could allow students, for instance, to collaborate on a Google Slides document where 30 students could collaborate together, all seeing what the other students are doing at the same time. So Google Classroom is really a cornerstone of something that we use, and I'm sure many teachers use in their class.
Go in order? Mm-hmm. All right. One of the other things we use a lot is Brain Genie. Brain Genie is part of a web conglomerate called CK12, and they have a lot, almost a K through 12 series of objectives for math. So what it allows us to do is differentiate. So if we're working on number properties, we can assign some objectives to everybody. And if we see students fly through that quickly, we can assign ones who are understanding that material, a little more challenging material. And if we see students struggling with that, we can dial down and give them other practice problems. It's very interactive. You can hover over a student. You can see how many minutes and seconds they spent on problems. You can see how many they got right, and it's very informative. So we use that a lot. The second thing that I'm talking about is Explain Everything. The grade school, 58, uses Explain Everything a lot, and some of our students were familiar with it. They can video, record their voice, and they can write with their finger. The reason why we wanted to use it, and we had Lisa and John come in and help us the first day we did it, we were having students do expressions with fours, and they needed to have the math symbols. And I don't know if any of you have tried to type math symbols in a Word document. It's not easy. It's not easy for us, and it's really not easy for the kids. So we wanted to have a way where they could actually write a square root sign just with their finger, because they were going to use things like that. Go Formative is another interactive website that allows us, it's like Hapara, so I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Hapara, but it allows us to see all their screens at once. So we were able to put out a couple of questions for the students to work on. They all have their Chromebooks up, and on our Smartboard, we can see all their screens at the same time. So we can see what they're doing, how far they're getting, where the problems are occurring.
And then Go Formative also works with Google Classroom. So for instance, the Explain Everything. So when they did their Explain Everything, they turned it in through the Google Classroom, and that way we're able to see everything that they've done and give them feedback and allow them to revise. Socrative is a program, it's a formative assessment program that we use. It allows us to get the pulse of the class quickly. We can create something within a few minutes, maybe even while the students are on a quick break, and that way we know where the students are, do we have to reteach, or can we move on? And then Google Forms is a powerful tool that many people use, not just in the classroom. And one of the ways we used it was for the para-testing, where we were able to have the students take this test. We were able to grade it with Flubaroo, which some of you might know about. And then we were able to, within seconds, see how many students got each question right or wrong, where we need to work on, where the strengths and weaknesses are of the class. And then we can retest them and see how they've grown within time. So these are just some of the ways. We had to kind of limit what we were going to talk about, but there really is, it allows the students to work in a way and us to interact with the students and interact with each other in a way that we couldn't do before.
Mike Manzo is here with us. Our other student was ill. I got an email at 6:15 that she was not able to come. But Mike did a really nice job the day we used Explain Everything, and we had John and Lisa and Jason Leathers and some other people. It was like there was almost one-on-one teaching in our room that day. So Mike, can you just share how you felt about Explain Everything?
It felt good. It really helped me a lot, though, with the times 4 problems. I thought that was, like, easier to use the square root sign instead of, like, trying to do something else. But anyways, that helped.
And did you find it, Mike was really helpful with other people, right?
Yeah, I helped somebody download it and tell them how long it would take.
Right.
Because they weren't here the day it came out, so.
Yep. So it's letting some students who are maybe struggling with the content shine in other ways, which is good. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to hear from Cindy Montero. Cindy Montero is a Spanish teacher at South High. Cindy teaches multiple levels of Spanish. She also was part of the pilot both years, part of our one-to-one learning pilot, and she is serving right now as one of our instructional tech coaches. So she comes in with lots of experiences, and she's going to share a little bit with us about her experience and the impact on student learning in her Spanish class.
So it's exciting to be one of the instructional technology coaches at South, to work with other teachers and have them create new plans and new ideas and new things that they want to try in the classroom is really exciting and it's refreshing. I'm learning a lot from the other teachers as well that come down and ask for help and ideas. So like Gina said, I have been in the pilot since the beginning with my Spanish 2 classes. And I can just say, for me, it's been transformational. It really has. Up on the screen is basically my daily plan, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's really let me differentiate my instruction with the kids, because in Spanish 2 there's so many different levels of learners. There's the kids that get it right away, then there's the middle of the road kids, and there's the kids that really struggle. And with technology, it's really helped me to be able to help all kids and make them all be successful. On the left of this is basically the enrichment activities. So a daily plan, it's just a Google Doc, that's all it is. Everything is in a Google Doc. And they have enrichment activities at the top, and this is just a section of it. So when the kids need to practice or when they need to go to a different website, everything that's underlined there is actually a link. So it's a link to an outside website, it's linked to a video, it's linked to a PowerPoint or a Google presentation. I flip my classroom as well. I started doing that about 4 years ago, which works really well. Flipping your classroom is basically the kids take notes outside of class. So it saves actually a lot of time during class. So there's a video, it's a PowerPoint that I voice over, and then there's practice at the end. Because kids take notes at different speeds. And a lot of the times I found the kids were just rushing through it and they weren't listening. The kids can pause it, they can rewind it. If they're sick, they haven't missed the notes. And with the Chromebooks in class now, sometimes kids don't do their homework. And so what I can do is I can put them in the back of the room and I can say, you gotta watch this video first, or if they were absent, they can watch the video and then they can come back and do the class activities. Before the Chromebook, I had to give them a printout of something. And so on the right-hand side is the daily plan. So the kids have their objective. This was a review for a test. So it basically says what we're going to be doing in class. So some of the kids are not going to get to step 3 and step 4. I just want them, I know that they're going to get to step 1 and step 2. I want them to work at their own paces. This is actually a YouTube video I created, which is a review for the test with me actually giving them the answers orally through the YouTube video. And then it's great because I can just walk around and answer questions and help the kids. Before the Chromebooks, I felt like it was more me in front of the class, and I wasn't able to individually help the kids as much as I can with the Chromebooks because they're working on different activities. And they're not in the Chromebooks all the time. I mean, they go in and out of the Chromebooks. They have speaking activities, they have manipulatives that they can do as well. This particular day, I was actually in this room for a meeting, or in the room next door, and 8th period comes up, and I decided I was going to open up Hampara. And this is where you can see the kids' screens. So even if you're not in the building, you can see their screens. So I was on the Google Doc, and you can communicate with people on a Google Doc. So I went in there and I communicated with the kids, which was really cool. So I asked them if they had any, well, I said, just remember Senor's watching, because I was watching their screens, and I asked them if they had any questions. And I had some great questions, I really did. I wish I would have taken like a screenshot of it, because it was, some of the kids were like, oh, what's this question? And I answered, another kid would say, oh, that explains it so well. And it was like, once in a while with the Chromebooks, you have these moments, you're like, this is great, and it was so simple. And another thing that I've done because of the daily plan is when I help students individually, I create a daily plan for just us. So if I'm working with a student who's struggling, I will create just one for us of things that I feel that they should be working on and different activities they should do, and I share it with the parents. So the parents have this individual plan with maybe some of the things that I've taken from here, and I also share this with the parents. So all the parents have access to everything that we're doing in class and all the resources. I don't know if I forgot anything. So how about I invite my students up right now? Matt, why don't you come up first, and then we'll have Sam come up after you do. This is Matt LaRue.
Hello, everybody. So I'm a student from Mrs. Montero's class in Downers Grove South. I'm a sophomore. And last year we received Chromebooks as part of the pilot program. And I can confidently say that I think they're a pretty good step forward in the learning system. So, for example, like when I was sick from school, I was able to go onto the teacher's website and get the class materials, so I didn't like fall behind or anything like that. And beyond that, like it can provide lots of feedback for students. So, like Mrs. Montero was saying, if students work at different paces, they can still get feedback on their work. So, like, this allows students who are slower to get more practice, while students who are, higher level can, keep going forward, and it's kind of more of an interactive experience for everybody rather than, people being almost bored by not being challenged enough. And beyond that, so like it provides easier communication with teachers and overall a better collaboration with other students. So I think it's a good step forward, and we appreciate you making this decision for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Sam Bates.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a senior at Downers Grove South, and I remember receiving my first Chromebook last year when I was a junior as part of the pilot thing. And the first 2 years, I didn't have a Chromebook, so when I did have a Chromebook my junior year and this year, it definitely made a positive difference. And I remember Miss Montero's daily plan and her enrichment activities. I was definitely one of those students who needed to take their time, and I definitely wasn't the first one to finish a test first or get the enrichment activities done right away. So I would go home and I would end up finishing that and work at my own pace, and that was really helpful for me. If I ever had questions, I could go in and ask her, or we could work on it together, or it was just probably a really beneficial thing for me. So. Okay.
Thank you.
We have Emma Bolinski.
Hi, so I'm a junior at South, and sophomore year I missed about a month of school in May, so catching up was going to be really, really hard. So fortunately, Mrs. Montero, she had an extra Chromebook to lend to me. So that was really, really helpful because she made her own daily plan for me. So she would have day by day what we were going to do. So I would have work to do at home, which could be watching the notes that I missed in class. So she didn't have to explain it to me in class, so we wouldn't be wasting that time. So at home I would watch the notes, and then in class I would take a quiz or a test or practice that we would do. So that was really, really helpful. And then I was also able to use it for my other classes. So for English and math, I was able to have that online support and help that I needed, and to do that makeup work that I needed in other classes too. So overall, Chromebooks are really beneficial to learning and just helping up with, because I don't know how I would make up my work without a Chromebook. So yeah.
Emma actually started my thinking about doing an individual plan for students because she didn't have the Chromebook. She was in my Spanish 3 honors last year, so she was not in the Chromebook pilot. So I did have an extra Chromebook, and I thought, okay, we're going to have her work at her own pace during the class so she doesn't, we tried to figure out exactly what she needed to get done for the course, and she basically worked independently in the class for, I don't know how long. Was it the rest of the year? I don't remember exactly how long it was for. Yeah. And you did great.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
So we'll move now to talking about professional development. We have instituted a significant amount of professional development in preparing for the one-to-one rollout, and then obviously during it. And with that, you heard a couple times our teachers mention John and Lisa. I want to acknowledge John Orrick, who is our instructional technology coordinator at South, and Lisa Lichman, who is from North, the instructional technology coordinator at North, because they have been instrumental in this, in planning, coordinating, leading, everything. I mean, they've just been instrumental in terms of the PD, and we have done a lot of professional development. These are just a few examples, and I want to point out that these were all teacher-led. So we are not bringing in outside, companies or individuals to do the training for our teachers. These are teachers who are leading it. You'll notice that a few of the topics relate specifically to topics that were brought up by our teachers here tonight in terms of assessment and formative assessment and differentiation. So definitely we're focusing on those skills, those best practices that teachers need to be successful. And you'll note that some of those topics do not involve the word technology, right? Formative assessment. You know, obviously, you know, some of them are related specifically to technology, but locating and evaluating sources. You know, we're trying to focus on best practices for teachers and how the Chromebooks and being in a one-to-one environment can complement that. So those are just a few examples of one-to-one professional development that we've done. We've also done other types of PD or provided other types of PD for our teachers. Obviously, Cindy Montero is one of our instructional tech coaches at South High. We have 4 in each building. And they provide instruction not just when we're holding PD sessions, but the here and now. So they are in our tech center. Teachers are able to come in and get help as they need it. We also had over 30 teachers attend this summer the Leiden District 212 Symposium, and we were excited to be able to send every teacher that requested to go. We sent a few teachers to Maine Township for their summer learning experiences, as well as we have a District 99 one-to-one website that we will be rolling out. You know, obviously there's other teachers that attended individualized workshops. You know, a teacher went here or there, but I'm not going to list obviously every one of them. This is pretty much where we had groups of teachers go. We also have Synergize. Synergize is basically an online tutorial that all of our teachers have access to, and it takes you through like a little video that teaches you how to do various tasks, various apps. For example, you can go in and learn how to work on Google Docs, or learn how to insert a chart, or insert a table or a picture. They're basically short videos. They can be, some of them are as short as like 40 seconds. That will kind of walk you through how to do various operations. And then one of the other things that with John and Lisa's help, we rolled out just a couple of weeks ago, I think it's been a few weeks now, is our Wall of Innovation. And here's just a quick example of one. Our focus this year has been on teachers basically trying new ways to teach in a one-to-one learning environment. And as Dr. McDonald pointed out when he spoke to teachers this August, that it's not just about that good work that we're doing in our classes, but it's about sharing that. Again, going back to our vision of collaboration and really sharing the good work that you're doing. And we're doing that in a couple of ways. This is our lower tech way of doing it, but a very quick way. We have Post-its available. Every department has a big poster, and a teacher can quickly, you know, jot down a note of something that they're doing in class. It's quick, it's short, but it can spark conversation. And it's a way for teachers in that department, because one of our focuses this year as well is content specific. Because it may be very different in math, how you teach in a one-to-one learning environment versus world language or English or social studies or whatnot. So this is just an example of that wall of innovation. Want to talk through a couple of supports that we have in place for students. On the first full day of school, back in August, all students watched, we were on an altered schedule, like a PBIS schedule, and students watched a Chromebook video that John and Lisa created, and it walked them through a Chromebook, how to use a Chromebook, what's different from a Chromebook versus a laptop and whatnot. And so all students saw that video. We also have, and I believe I've spoken before about the Khajiit Smart Spots, those are basically hotspots that we were able to fund. We are leasing them through our Title I grant, and we are leasing 50 right now. And what that does, it gives educational Wi-Fi to students at home. They don't need it obviously in the building, but we have students that do not have internet access at home. So that's what the Smart Spots will do. Students who either qualify for free reduced lunch or homeless students are eligible. And as of a couple days ago, we had 32 checked out district-wide. And a couple of those, I can tell you, are being used by more than one student. So multiple students in a home, but many people can use the same Smart Spot. They, just so you know, they are filtered. So there are definitely sites that students cannot get to. They are for educational purposes. There's a contract, there's a whole process in place for that. And we do monitor that once a week to check and see what sites students are going to or attempting to go to. So we want to make sure that they are using it for educational purposes. We also have the one-to-one student webpage, which is something that we're working on. In fact, that's kind of being worked on right now. Basically been out there asking kids what they need. Wanted to give them some time actually in a one-to-one learning environment so they could figure out exactly what they need, and then we'll post information to help with that. And then, of course, we have a help desk where students can go if they have a problem with the machine, if they have questions, even in some cases if it's not fully charged, those kinds of questions. There's a help desk in each building where students can go for support. And with that, I will turn it over to Rob.
Wow. You know, several years ago, or maybe more, whenever this was discussed, all you heard from was me. I can't tell you how personally gratifying it is and how much of a testament it is to our district and the strength of everyone who's been involved and bringing this forward, where clearly, based on the percentage of my time and everyone else's that you're hearing from tonight, it's clearly, it's transitioned well into a learning initiative. It's no longer just technology that we added. This is a massive year of learning for everybody, for us in the tech department as well. 5,000 new devices being added. That's quite a substantial amount. Recall we had many assessments done. We doubled our internet bandwidth this summer, which proved to be a very necessary step. We've had a lot of successes. We've had some challenges. We had a vexing problem early on with home access, where we had some ups and downs where connectivity from home was just having a tremendous amount of issues. Some successes, but a lot of issues. Somewhat interestingly, other districts that we kind of keep track of that are doing one-to-one had similar issues. We all kind of made similar decisions along the same path, and ultimately it had to do with the internet content filtering tool that we used and that we have to use. And we selected a tool, as other districts did as well, that basically was one tool providing the content filtering for both in-school use as well as home use, to try to maximize that resource in just one tool. But found out after a long time working with them that that just was not a viable solution for home use. The Chromebooks are cloud-based, web-based tools, and we needed to find an alternative solution that provided a same cloud-based, web-based filtering tool for them. Several weeks ago, we changed over to this new tool, and I think, from everything I've heard anyway, the change was instant and it was good. Not to say that we'll always have some issues. Connectivity itself is a difficult walk to walk based on all the different things that have to happen, but we'll continue to monitor that closely. But I'm pretty confident that we definitely made a huge step in the right direction there. The devices themselves, all that I've heard anyway, are working out great. They are indeed, they're quick on, they're easy to use. The batteries, for the most part, from what I've been hearing, have been lasting well. We're still early on, again, part of that learning experience from us. As we get through about the first half of the year, we'll take a closer look at that so we can start to plan for the years that come. From a staffing perspective, I know we looked long and hard at that over the past year or so. Most people would assume we're adding 5,000 devices to our system. That would require a tremendous amount of extra support, many, many more technology expert hands. But I think much due to the Chromebooks themselves, they're pretty easy to maintain from a tech standpoint. So from a pure technology standpoint, we really haven't seen a tremendous need for an increase there. If anything, as we go forward, we'll take a closer look at the the purely like help desk related type of support in the technology departments in the schools, in that, again, there's that many more technology users that over time will be coming in and asking for help. So that's something that we'll kind of assess as the year goes on. But so far, what we have in place there is holding up well. And as Gina mentioned, there is the tech support center in each building that students come to. And I had some notes prepared to talk about that, but I'm actually going to show a video that Lisa prepared with some of the students in the tech support area that are working at the tech support area in North. And this kind of describes a little bit, a 90-second video for you.
In this video, you see two of our student technology leaders changing a fan on one of our Chromebooks. The students are also used to change the batteries, the screens, the keyboards, and the SSD cards inside of the Chromebook. Students at both North and South can come to the IT department located in the libraries to have their device worked on. When they come to IT, a staff member will give them a loaner computer so they do not miss any class time. An IT department member or one of the student technology helpers will diagnose the problem and determine how long it will take to fix the student device. A fan, a battery, or a screen can usually be fixed during the period, and then the student can come down at the end of the class to grab their normal device and hand the loaner back in. If the repair is going to take longer than one period, the student will receive an email letting them know they should not come back until the next day to check on their device. According to Jason Leathers, one of the North desktop support technicians, the student technology leaders learn a valuable skill while helping their peers get the most out of their devices.
Great. Well done.
Wow.
That's great.
Can we bring ours?
Yeah, please.
Start, turn it into a business, start charging
They
people.
just come to my house. It's too hard for me to bring it here.
And go to the Apple store.
We have our own geek squad.
So,
Wow.
So in terms of next steps, we have many next steps, obviously. We are in the process of rolling out District 99 Shares, which is a Google community where teachers can share information about what they learned at conferences. They can ask and answer questions, share successes in the classroom, kind of some of the same things that might be on that wall of innovation, but certainly sharing little tidbits of what they're doing, and people can ask questions and learn from that. We haven't rolled that out yet, but we're definitely in the process for that. Related to some of what you heard here tonight, we are in the process of rolling out several surveys. In fact, we just met today to finalize 3 of the surveys. So we're rolling out District 99 surveys to teachers, parents, and students, where we have a number of questions we'll be asking to really ascertain how things are going and how beneficial the Chromebooks have been and what the challenges are. And we know there will be challenges. We also are going to roll out a Speak Up survey. It's a national survey, I should say, which provides schools and districts that participate with different surveys for their parents and students and teachers to gain feedback. Some example questions, or at least the data from last February, really reaches out to find out what concerns parents might have, what they'd like to know more about, what is the most effective way to communicate with parents. Sample questions for students were related to rating their technology skills and mobile devices that they have and access at home in terms of internet. And then for teachers also rating their tech skills, what activities they do regularly in the classroom that use technology. And we will actually receive that data. So it is free of charge. The survey is free of charge. So we'll be doing that survey along with our own in-house surveys. Obviously, we're going to continue with our professional development. All of our teachers have been trained in Google Drive, That was our goal for the start of the school year, and as you know from previous reports and district goals, we met that goal. We are continuing to provide professional development, and again, the vast majority of that being in-house and led by our teachers. We'll obviously continue to learn, to adjust what we're doing, review, and then adjust again. This has been a huge undertaking for teachers, for students, for tech people, for all of us, really. While it's going well, we need to continue to review that and monitor that and make adjustments as we need it. You know, in terms of how we're feeling about it right now, the big picture, we're very pleased with where we're at. But we know it's a long-term process and we need to continue moving forward.
Very good. That's impressive. Yeah.
Questions or?
Questions?
I have a question for our teaching staff. It's very impressive, the amount of time that you're spending on individualized instruction and the feedback you give. Is it taking more time for you than the traditional method of teaching, where you were, and some of you may not have been around for the traditional method, but how are you finding the time balance for you? For any one of you?
I find it's manageable. I don't, you know, I mean, being an instructional technology coach as well, it can be very overwhelming with technology.
Yeah.
It can be. And so you have to sort of find what works for you and try not to get overwhelmed with everything. I haven't found that it's too much for me. I have found that, you know, especially the exciting things that you find and the successes, and there are some failures. You're like, wow, I should not have done that, and I'm not going to do that again. I mean, that's just part of teaching.
That's the way life is, right?
Right.
I concur. I think, you know, the wall of innovation type thing, even before it was up there, we were talking. Like, hey, I tried whatever. You should try it. It works well in this situation, you know, with, I feel like there's a lot of tools out there, and the harder part of what we're doing now is figuring out if a tool will work to supplement or support kids in a way that we couldn't before. So I don't know if I could relate it to teaching before. I definitely think it's better because there are so many other things that I would have never thought of as ways to support kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of feel like the overwhelm, like, oh my gosh, I don't know which one to choose or what to try first. But, you know, fortunately there's two of us, and we, you know, have a co-plan period together, which is hugely beneficial. So we're able to talk through, you know, I think this group should do this, and I think that group should do that. And, you know, if there wasn't two of us, I'd be talking to myself in the corner or something. But still be working it out, I guess.
I think for us, it's a choice we make. Sometimes we start on something and we say, this is going to work better on paper.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to use the Chromebooks. Until somebody comes along, I mean, there's so much wonderful staff, the instructional coaches, Lisa and John, and they come and they give you a tool where you say, oh, look, you can actually work smarter, not harder. And you say, great, now this frees up my time to be able to work with a student or do something else that's more beneficial. So it's a choice we make sometimes where we say, it's going to take too much time to do this with tech, we'll do it on paper. But then there's always that, those people that come along and all that wonderful support we get that helps us and say, well, actually there is a way we can do it and it's easier. So
interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much. You know, nothing of this magnitude comes off easily. Everybody knows that. But really, it's just been a beautiful implementation. And I think that you really, everybody here and beyond deserves just a very heartfelt thank you, because I know this was a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of barriers, a lot of frustrations. I'm not so sure how many Chromebooks may have hit the wall during this implementation, but I'm sure there was at least a temptation. So thank you very, very much. And to the students, thank you. Thank you for
coming. Yeah.
For coming and presenting. We're sorry we were late, and it's really been good for us to hear that this has made a difference in how you learn, because you are why we're here. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well said.
We'll give you one final. Evan.
Okay. Mrs. Zaccardi is on again.
It's the Gina night. Gina show. with Avid.
Okay, well, tonight we are going to provide an update on our AVID program. You may recall a couple years ago, we presented about AVID. We were very early into the AVID program, and so we are going to provide an update as well as some data about how AVID is going in our buildings. As you may recall, AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and it is a program that is nationwide, 46 different states. New to us, relatively new to us, but has been in existence for over 30 years. So today's presentation, there will be 3 of us. Obviously, I'll be presenting a lot of the data, but Jenny Wolf, who is our AVID coordinator at South High, she also is a science teacher, will share with us some information about AVID. And Brittany Mitchell, who is our North High AVID coordinator, will share, and also an English teacher and reading teacher, now that I think about it, will also share some information with us. Should also point out that they have been in AVID our planning year, as well as, so this is our 3rd year, so 4 years. They've been in this journey with me for 4 years, and they have looped with the students, so they taught freshmen, sophomores, and now they teach the junior AVID class. Okay, so it'll be the 3 of us. With that, I will turn it over to Jenny, who will provide an overview of our AVID program.
Good evening. So as Gina mentioned, AVID is a college preparatory program. It has a very structured curriculum, which is available to all of the teachers and our site team members, both electronically and in hard copy, depending on what's more applicable to you on any given day. It does go through day by day. Day 1, do this. Day 2, do this. Day 3, do this. We fluctuate with that depending on the needs of our students and what's going on any given day. But throughout the entire program and the curriculum itself, we are going to have a lot of instructional strategies that all of our students within the entire school and district should be able to access as we roll this program out a little bit more school-wide. So some examples of those strategies include Cornell Notes, which is becoming much more widespread in both schools in various departments, including science, social studies, English, and some math programs. We also have a very structured organizational system. So if you've ever met any of our AVID students, they carry around a very large 3-ring binder, which is 3 inches. And there are multiple days throughout the course of the semester that we will ask them to give it to us so that we can do binder checks. Sometimes that happens weekly, sometimes it happens monthly, just depends on what's going on and what level of student we're working with. I did ask the kids if I could bring one of those binders for an example this evening, and they all looked at me as though I was crazy because that is their lifeline. So I apologize that I don't have one to show you right now. AVID is very unique in that on Tuesdays and Thursdays we have tutorials, unlike a one-on-one structured tutorial wherein you have a student who asks a teacher or a tutor questions and then the tutor kind of helps them along to figure out the answer. Our tutorials are very Socratic in our methodology. So we have a group of 7 students, anywhere from 5 to 7 that work with one of our tutors. And the kids themselves are learning different questioning strategies and levels of questioning in order to get their answers embedded, I suppose. So we have students that will stand up and present their problems on the board, and then the rest of their team or their tutorial group is responsible for asking them questions to help get them to their final answer. That happens every Tuesday and Thursday. We also do Socratic seminars, which are fishbowl conversations, if you're familiar with that, from the English department. So we give them a variety of different topics based on things that come up in class, different readings that we come across, TED Talks that we may come across, and we ask the kids to do a little bit of research and come back with some discussion type questions, which again leads back to and strengthens this idea of questioning in the curriculum and throughout curricular areas. And last but not least, we have something called philosophical chairs, which is an organized argument. So kids have to come in with some detail and some background information, and then they choose a side, argue their point, and have the ability to switch sides if necessary. So That's Avid in a nutshell. We don't get to all of that every single day. It just depends on what else is going on. Tuesdays and Thursdays are held specifically for tutorials, so those are non-movable dates. The Avid student is going to be one of our students who is in the average to high test band. And so we're looking at a 2.0 to 3.5 GPA, and we believe that these are students that have the ability to go to college and to do very well with supports, which is what the Avid program is going to put in place and help them along with. Most of them, but not all of them, are probably a member of a subgroup, and they are oftentimes the first generation to go to college. We also have some students that will not fit into any of those categories, but because of certain circumstances, they are also applicable for the Avid program.
I'm proud to say that following the course of this 3-year track with Looping with our students, we have seen our enrollment expand. So it started off as a plan and this big idea, hey, Brittany, do you want to come on this unknown journey with me? And now, we have 3 full classes at North, 4 at South. Our enrollment has expanded to the point where at South, they have 2 sections of freshmen now. So we've sort of transitioned from worrying about having enough buy-in to, oh, what do we do with all this buy-in now? Because we don't nearly have enough room to house all of the minds that are in fact interested in our program. So as you can see on the presentation, we have maintained steady enrollment and increased it. So it wasn't last year, but 2 years ago, I've been stuck in an Avid zone, so all the time blends. I did some internal recruiting once we, lost a few students due to moves, TCDs, scheduling changes. Again, Avid is a support, and we want to make sure the appropriate students are in fact being supported. And while District 99 is one that has a vast array of supports, we do redirect some students from time to time to get the more appropriate support. That has been far and few between as the years have progressed, but I'd like to think that those numbers are very telling that we haven't been too scary after freshman boot camp when they first have us. Speaking of Avid supports, as Jenny had discussed, we have primarily the curricular support, so different organizational tools, note-taking strategies. One of the components that my students have found most valuable, and normally you don't think teenagers want to hear more adults talking to them than they already have, they really do enjoy our guest speaking component. I would say that every year we have roughly 9 to 15 guest speakers. Again, it just depends on the type of year that we're having and when we are in fact able to plan more time for that. Our guest speakers come primarily on Fridays at North. So as Jenny had explained, we do have Tuesdays and Thursdays blacked out as our non-negotiable time for tutorial sessions. So Fridays naturally lend themselves better to guest speakers. So in that picture, one of my friends is Marcus Evans. He's one of our state representatives. He came in, he shared a story with the kids about sort of his rise to being a non-believing and very angsty teen to now a state rep. We have had nurses, we've had veterinarians. This year we had a physician's assistant, toxicologist. It was very nice. Joanne Purcell, who had just spoken in the previous presentation, devoted her time this year to our classes at North and just discussed her career journey because she did not start out in teaching. And the kids are always very interested in hearing from the teachers because, many of us did not start off where we are now. So they look at us in a little more human way. Another big thing that Jenny and I have worked on planning and coordinating our college visits. It's very important, especially with many of our students being the first generation high school graduates even, to be exposed to that college going culture. So we've had visits to Elmhurst, UIC, Northern. This year we are working on DePaul, and then we're working on a host of admissions representatives coming in and talking to our classes, especially for the interests that are unique or the trips that are too far to take. It at least piques the interest of the kids to hear from the people that would in fact be admitting them. So that time is also very valuable, and it's been extremely valuable to have college and career centers and counselors that are dedicated to making these experiences that much more meaningful for our kids. Extending on the support would be professional development. So much like our one-to-one PD, we have had some of the AVID supports that we have outlined in professional development sessions, Cornell Notes sessions, just teaching the teachers how to use the system in their classrooms and how to transfer that learning from the AVID classroom across curricular areas. We've also had Socratic questioning and inquiry professional development sessions, and this has led to, at South, the Global Connections classes use Cornell Notes. Some of the AP US History classes at North use Cornell Notes, and then we also have on the lower end of skills, our strategies in the reading centers, they use the Cornell Notes too. So we are seeing this one strategy being used by students that represent a wide spectrum of learning and ability. In addition to that, for us and our sanity, we have our supports at AVID Central. We have Gina, sorry Gina. And then we have our site teams, which are basically our support system in-house. So we have representatives from each department, and we have at North quarterly meetings. Jenny and her team meet frequently, and they come up with game plans basically, and they keep each other in the loop. And it's very nice because regardless of if a site team member has a student in class or not from the AVID program, they then matriculate and articulate information from that site team meeting about the program into their own department. So it's becoming more of a school effort and less of a unique effort to our AVID classroom.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the data. And as Dr. McDonald shared, I think it was a couple of meetings ago when we talked about a little bit about AVID, we don't have a senior class yet. We will next year. But we still have data that we use to evaluate the program. So what's up here, and this is a multiple page document, but this is just one example. So 2 times a year, our site teams, really headed by Jenny and Brittany, fill out these certification documents. So in order to be an AVID school, you have to basically fulfill certain aspects of AVID. So this is an example of one essential. There's actually 11 essentials that the site teams rate themselves on. And they rate themselves twice. There's the initial self-study, which, for example, this year is due to me as the district director on December 4th, and then I have about a week to review it, meet with them, provide feedback, and then submit it to AVID Center. And then we go through basically the same process in the spring, around May, end of April, May. So what happens is you have to rate yourself on each one of these 11 essentials and then provide evidence of how you're doing that. And so I share this with you just as an example. This is the first essential, which is about focusing on the right target audience of students. So those students that are in the middle, but with potential, with support, can begin their pathway to college. So this is just one example. There's, as I said, 11 essentials, and they range from Essential 1, which is this. There's essentials that, like Essential 2 relates to voluntary participation. Essential 8 relates to tutorology. Essential 10 is ongoing PD. Each essential is different. So we rate ourselves. This data goes to AVID Center. After I approve it, it goes to AVID Center, and then they have to approve it. So there's an entire process for this. And again, we do it twice a year. And we'll look, we did last year, I'm sure we will again, we looked at how did our data look the year before, how did this information look the year before, how are we doing now, what has changed, how are we on that trajectory towards moving. Obviously, we want to move towards level 3, although in some areas, I don't anticipate that we will necessarily be there. So another report, and there's all kinds of reports, there's probably a dozen or more reports that we can pull. In February, I have to submit to AVID Center the data on our students. And there's all kinds of data. So there's data about number of male students and number of female students, what subgroups they are in, how many tutors we have, the age of our tutors, the number of hours we focus on tutoring. It is an elaborate data set that we submit each February. It's not student specific, it's number of students. And that gives us access to several reports. So this is a report using our data from last year. And I just provide this so you can see an example of what some of these data reports look like. Like I said, there's probably a dozen or so different reports. Many of them don't apply to us yet because we haven't had a senior class graduate, but probably half a dozen that I've looked at that do apply to us at this point. This is a report that I just want to share with you a couple of things about. So this comes out of the February data, and you can see, for example, each one is tied to one of those essentials. So in terms of professional learning right now, or this was based on last year actually, 5% of our teachers, administrators, counselors have been AVID trained. So AVID's goal really is to have about 75% of your teachers AVID trained. For the certification documents to get to level 3, it's 50%. We have been sending teachers every summer to Summer Institute. We sent a couple to PATH training, which was last week, was the first time we had a PATH training, which is a shorter training in Illinois. So that number will creep up, but it's a slow process. On this side, it relates to Essential 4, which is enrolling students in rigorous classes, which is related to Essential 4, but it's really about students being in a college-bound track. Up on the top relates tutor hours. That relates to Essential 8, which deals with tutoring. And we have to submit how many college-age tutors we have, cross-age, which are student tutors and adults. And then in the bottom there relates to dual credit. We really don't have students in AVID right now taking dual credit classes. This is again last year. Most freshmen and sophomores do not enroll in dual credit courses. So these relate, all the data that's provided does relate typically back somehow to those 11 essentials. We've been collecting our own data and looking at different data sets to evaluate whether or not the program has been effective. This data set is for our freshman students and looks at GPA and comparing it to all freshmen. And you'll notice that the AVID GPA is lower. Obviously, our AVID students are in more rigorous classes. These are students who typically would not be in an honors class. We may have some students that would have been, and we have some students that we put in AVID that are in accelerated courses. So that means as a freshman, they come in like Spanish 2 or French 2. But by and large, they are in the more rigorous courses. And so while we would like to see their GPA to be higher, it's not necessarily surprising. But then when we look at sophomores, this is exactly what we would expect. Those supports that Jenny and Brittany spoke about being put in place, along with those students being getting used to being in high school and all that comes with it, we see that that really changing. Even in tutorials, you know, there's a huge difference if you go to a freshman tutorial right now, and I was just in one last week, and right after it I stayed for the sophomore tutorials, and it was night and day. Both were good, but it was night and day. So I thought it might be best to look at our AVID data in terms of what we look at as a district. And as you know, I've reported many times about the number of A, B, and C grades. And so we're looking at the AVID data in that same way. Now these would be our current juniors. We don't have grades yet, obviously, for this year. So this is the 2 years by semester for our juniors. And you'll notice that, you know, we have the AVID students in blue, the non-AVID are all others. And you'll notice that obviously in, you know, freshman year it was a little bit lower, still lower, and initially that would be alarming, but then as you see, it's creeping up again in sophomore year. Exactly what we would expect as those supports are put in place, and these students are reaching. Especially in sophomore year, where AP US History is an option for these students. In freshman year, there really aren't any AP opportunities. Sophomore year opens it up to US AP and Computer Science AP, although typically that, we don't have huge numbers of students in Computer Science AP. And then looking at our current sophomores, so we just have 1 year of data. But very impressive in terms of the average number of A, Bs, and Cs for that group. Again, a different group of students than our current juniors, but we also as a district were further along in what AVID is. And while AVID is a program and it's a national program, we needed to make AVID our own. And I think we've done a good job. And I would say it's even a little bit different at North than it is at South, because while there is, AVID Center, and as a district director, I oversee all that, it is a lot with the site teams building based. As we look at course enrollment, again, this is class of 2017, so our juniors, we see a slightly higher average number of honors or AP courses with our AVID students than all students. And if certainly that, and those all group is including, or the non-AVID students, is of course including students who were in the honors pathway from the get-go. So I think that's important to point out as well. Class of 2018, we still see the same, certainly the same in terms of 14, 15. And then this year, we're using data that's current, a little bit different, may look a little bit different as the year goes on, but that's our data, at least for now. What I think is really important to point out is that as these students are really stretching themselves to be in the highest level of classes, typically courses that they would not be in. Okay, so if we have a student, and we're going to start the application process very soon, so if there's a student who is recommended by our feeder schools who comes in and is already on the trajectory for, honors bio and honors English, that throws up some red flags, because we're looking for those students that are in the middle that need that support to go into those courses. Sometimes we turn students away because they don't necessarily need the AVID supports. They're already on that path. So this, I think, is very positive as we see, that the AVID students are showing better attendance, obviously, than all students. One of the things we looked at this year is the number of activities, the average number of activities that AVID students are enrolled in. And while we only see a slight increase in AVID freshmen being enrolled in activities, we see a fairly substantial increase for our sophomores. A little more than half an activity on the average per student. So while these students are carrying around those huge binders that they obviously wouldn't let Jenny take to come and show you. And they are doing, most AVID students will tell you they're doing more work than their non-AVID counterparts. They're in courses that are stretching them, and so they're working harder, and it's rigorous. AVID is an elective course that is in their school day. It's a credit-bearing course that's in their school day. This is not just a, support opposite lunch or something like that. So these students are potentially doing more work than their counterparts, and yet they're still showing greater attendance and enrollment in more activities. So, to kind of wrap up a little bit about AVID and our next steps. Well, we are in the process, or very soon will be, in recruiting the next freshman class. So next year we'll have a freshman through senior classes of AVID. Both buildings will have an open house, so an incoming freshman night on November 17th. Where those students that receive or those families, I should say, that receive an invitation to attend will hopefully come. Basically, we work with our sender schools through sender school articulation pretty much nonstop. So we reach out, I reached out to them, a month or so ago saying, please give us your students that fall in this range. Please let us know the ones that you think would be the best candidate for AVID. And then we send those families an invitation to attend the open house. And they learn, obviously, at the open house about AVID, all that it is, and from there can make a decision as to whether or not they wish to apply. Those applications obviously come back to the site teams, and then we conduct interviews. The site team members conduct interviews where we actually interview at the feeder schools. So we go out to each school and interview students, and from there we create a new class of freshman AVID students. We will continue, as we are expected, to do professional development. As I said, we just had a PATH training last week. 3 District 99 members attended. It was the first time there was a PATH training in this area, so not really sure what to expect. but it was good, it went well. We have also sent members to Summer Institute, but we'll continue to work on Avid Center professional development. We also will continue to work with our teachers and our faculty. As I believe it was Brittany said, we did some professional development with our teachers in terms of Cornell Notes and Costa's levels of questioning, which is taking students those higher level questions to really foster their thinking. We'll continue, as I said, our work with our feeder schools, which has really been ongoing, and we've had great support. In fact, we've had several administrators, I think even a couple of teachers from our center schools come and we invited them, and they came, which was incredible, to actually watch tutorials. So they were able to see their previous students in action during a tutorial, because this is very different. These, I believe that there are several tenets of Avid that make it unique and important, and I firmly believe tutorials are the heart of Avid. It is like no other type of tutoring that I'm aware of. So it was really great to have them come and actually see students in a tutorial. And then, of course, we have our department chairs visiting our tutorials as well as administrators from both buildings. And in terms of parent outreach, that has been something that our coordinators have been working on, as well as with the building admin that help with Avid. At South, it's Vince Walsh-Rock. At North, it's Janice Schwartz. And they both buildings have done some parent outreach already this year. At South, there was a parent university just a week or two ago.
October 20th.
October 20th. It went very well. Very, very positive feedback. And then at North, they did a tailgate for Avid families. Unfortunately, in the rain, but nonetheless.
It was fun anyway.
Tailgate. So we will continue moving forward, continue gathering data as we, of course, get to that senior class. I think that data will be so much more important, but those are our next steps.
That's impressive.
Thank you. So questions?
Are you working that 3-inch binder to go on to the Chromebooks?
That's such a fantastic question. We go back and forth, and the Avid teachers from both schools have had numerous conversations about this. We started that at Summer Institute. We continue to have these conversations both formally and informally. We've polled the kids, and there are pieces that happen electronically that are beneficial. And then there are things that just do not work electronically. So for our juniors, when they're doing a lot of pre-calculus and physics problems, trying to get them to draw a picture on a screen is not as beneficial or user-friendly as having them actually have paper and a pencil in their hand, which they can then put right up on a whiteboard if that's what they need to do. In other instances, if they're taking notes in like US history, the Chromebook is very applicable, and we do have a format wherein they can just use a template for Cornell Notes that's already electronic. So we give them a lot of leeway. We give them a little bit more autonomy to make these decisions as they advance within the Avid program. Freshmen don't have as many choices as some of the juniors do, but it's still very much a work in progress.
Good, thanks.
Gina, is there an opportunity for us to do in-house training for our educators?
There is. The in-house training that we've done thus far, for example, with the Cornell Notes and with the questioning, has been our teachers doing that training. And we can continue to do that, and hopefully we will, as more and more teachers are already using some of these strategies in class. We also have the opportunity, if we'd like, and again, Avid in terms of membership and professional development and supplies is funded out of our Title I budget. But we do have the opportunity, and some schools do this, where Avid Center actually comes in and teaches in your building. So, you could have 30 in this room, and but professional development through Avid Center is costly. And so, so that has been something that we haven't pursued at this time.
But if we don't use their training, then we can't call the program Avid. And we can't use some of their materials, is that correct?
Yes, we have to show that certification document. I mean, I showed you for Essential 1. If we would have taken it to some of the other essentials, the only way we can ever get to the institutionalized is to have the majority of our faculty trained. And there are a lot of schools. I've done probably a dozen site visits, part of my district director training, which was also required. We went to different schools and visited, and I was in a cohort, so I have about 40 other people that were in with me for 2 years. So we visited a lot of schools. There are some schools that pretty much the whole school has been trained. But we have very rich professional development already here in District 99. A lot of these strategies are not necessarily unique to Avid, but they have bundled them and used them in new and different ways. And so I think since we have in most of our strands about 80% or more of our teachers already trained, we're in a good place in terms of teachers with best practices. But again, only 5% of our staff's been trained. So if as we move forward, we are expected every year to continue to train people, which is why I sent 3 people to the PATH training. We are not planning on doing Summer Institute this year.
Thank you. So you're saying that even though our staff has done lots of professional development, it's not Avid certified, it's professional development. Got it.
Don?
Yeah.
And only Avid certified teachers can teach the tutorials?
The teacher actually doesn't teach the tutorial. We have tutors, and we have some teachers that serve as tutors on their duty. We have some outside tutors. We hired 3 this year. The teacher does oversee tutorials and kind of goes around from group to group. There is an expectation, however, and I would say this is not just true of tutorials, I would say the entire Avid class, that Avid elective teachers attend Summer Institute for multiple years to be considered trained to teach the Avid elective class. And Jenny and Brittany can actually speak more to their training than I can, because mine was different.
Why would we be shooting for a larger percentage of trained teachers if they're not actually teaching the courses?
One of the goals of Avid, one of the goals of Avid is called school-wide. So that is the goal of Avid, to take these strategies throughout
throughout the school.
So all of this, even as you look at the certification documents, are, I won't say all, but mostly geared towards that school-wide approach. Now, they are best practices. I would clearly argue that these are excellent strategies, and many of our teachers already use these strategies. But certainly we do want to train more teachers. I don't know that we'd ever get to 50% or something like that, but we certainly want to remain an Avid school.
And to remain an Avid school, we have to keep showing progression? Is that what you're saying?
That is what they have shared with us, that we have to show that we are, for example, bring in college-age tutors. So on the documents that we submit, we are supposed to have some college-age tutors. We do, but that has been a challenge for us as well. Student teachers might stay for a short time, so they're kind of in and out. Each tutor has to be trained for 16 hours. That is something that is part of the certification document. Right now, Jenny, Brittany, and I do the training. And 16 hours is, I will say, is challenging. It's not bad for tutors that are here, obviously, for an entire year. We did, I thought, some great. Our training last year for the second part was, I thought, was fantastic. It was based on reflective. And Jenny and Brittany actually taped some of the tutors in their tutorials, and then they were able to view it later and respond to some reflection questions. So I thought it was a great process. However, it is challenging when we have student teachers that are here for a short period of time.
To increase the number of students that are in the program, do we need a greater percentage of teachers who are trained, or do we just need more tutors?
It's sort of a yes to both. So the more teachers we bring into the program, the more teachers should be trained. Now, are we able to meet that every single year? It's difficult to say. My intent right now is not to do Summer Institute this year. We've done 3 years of Summer Institute. It is difficult for families. It's difficult for people in the summer. But we may have to revisit that when we know who our next teacher is.
Did I say teacher? I meant students.
Students.
The more students we bring into the program, do we need more teachers who are certified?
Not necessarily. It would go by classes. But tutors, the more students we have in the program, the more classes we have, yes, the more tutors we would have to have. So last year, we only had 1 outside tutor. This year, we have 3.
So it seems like the early results are pretty successful. So what's your ultimate goal, the number of percentage of students who you'd like to see involved in the program?
I think for now, my goal is that we just remain steady, that we have a class at each level, and we look to see how successful the program is. We have 2 freshman classes right now at South because they had large numbers that qualified, and we'll have to consider how many of those stay in the program. Each year, with the exception of the junior class currently, obviously, they've brought in students. So some students came in middle of freshman year, some students came in the beginning of sophomore year. But as they get into junior year, we will not be bringing in, I suppose there's rare cases. If we had a student transfer from another Avid school or something along those lines, but we won't be bringing in more students. As to whether or not the goal of the district would be to be school-wide, I think that's down the road to be decided. I don't think we have enough data or really enough to make a decision in terms of that or the commitment that takes.
You mentioned how this has been integrated throughout our schools, not just within Avid, and I heard Cornell Notes brought up several times, and I have to admit, hopefully I didn't miss it, but I really don't know what Cornell Notes are.
That's okay, we didn't either in students.
Is there a way for you to really quickly kind of give me a executive summary?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Cornell Notes are probably the most hated strategy by students, however, the most utilized. They are 2-column notes. On one side, you will have questions, but that's the after part. So first, on the right-hand side, students are to take notes on a given topic. And then after, in order to interact with their notes, which they should be doing anyway, they write questions that indicate what the notes on the right-hand side, in fact, are answering. At the very end, they have a summary section where they put the questions and answers together and then in their own words state what it is that they learned from that specific lesson. The cool thing about the notes is that, one, they are to interact with them, so it minimizes their forgetfulness when it comes to the material, because if they use them as they're supposed to, which of course they all are, they will, become more ingrained in the material and they'll have to study less when it comes to the test because they're that familiar with the material. But they haven't figured that out yet. If they fold the notes in half, they can quiz themselves with question and answer too. So it really does prompt them to organize their learning, chunk their material when they're note taking, and be purposeful and deliberate instead of just writing down every single word they see a teacher put on a presentation.
And what
And
you'll
they play
see
Jeopardy.
in tutorials, you'll see students using resources. So, for example, their Cornell Notes. Because the tutorial starts with a point of confusion, somewhere where they got stuck, so to speak. And the tutors, and even the students on their own volition, will look at resources, and the Cornell Notes are each part of that.
We also encourage and mandate, actually, that the students go back and revise those Cornell Notes as need be when going through tutorials. So when I grade their Cornell Notes, I'm looking for information that they have added because of the tutorial or because they got another piece of information from one of their student teammates.
I would have preferred Cliff Notes.
Yeah, really. Can you buy and sell Cornell Notes?
I asked about that. Thus far, I've ignored them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool.
Okay, last presentation tonight is the calendar for the 16-17 school year. We actually given the board 2 calendars. One I'm going to call the traditional one that starts near the end of August. The first semester ends after the holiday break. In fact, the final exams in this calendar are the 3rd week after the holiday break. Typically, the final exams are before Martin Luther King holiday. This is, the final exams are during the week of Martin Luther King holiday. The end of the school year is near the end of May. Graduation, I believe, is on
May 29th. Yeah.
May 29th. No, that can't be.
No, it can't be, because that's a
It's not on
Monday.
May 29th. It's on June 9th,
Right, that's the traditional
right?
calendar, right.
June.
And this would be, I mean, this is typically how we have done the calendar with some deviations, 2 or 3 days before, 2 or 3 days ahead. We also accommodate, we have additional days built into the end because of the snow days we now frequently have. But this calendar was, when we started the discussion, this calendar received the most support from the administration. It was shared with different employee groups and with the elementary school districts. It's also likely to be, although I haven't seen the Dr. Darlene Rossetti's recommended calendar. She does post a recommended calendar for all the school districts. I think her intent is that the school districts have the same vacation periods generally, at least the winter holiday break and the spring break. But I'm sure this calendar would fall within the realm of what Darlene Rossetti would say
She would be doing.
generally done. When I shared this with the president of the Teachers Association, and here we go.
This is the revised.
He indicated to me that some of the governing board members had asked about whether we could actually start the school year early enough so we could have final
They're
exams
interested
before the holiday break. And one of the calendars that we looked at actually had school starting on August 19th. And so I thought, well, let's just take a look at this. There are some clear issues with it in terms of, as long as our schools are not air conditioned, if we have a hot August, that'll be difficult. And we're pushing the envelope by pushing the start of school further back into August. There are some other things that need to be revised. For example, since I sent this to you, it occurred to me that we probably shouldn't have parent-teacher conferences on November 10th when school were to start on August 17th, because that's way deep into the first semester. Exactly when we take the holiday break, we could push that further if we needed to, or start school. I mean, have the holiday break begin at the close of school on December 23rd, for example. We don't necessarily, there's no rule that says we have to take 10 days, although my sense is that there might be some community concern about taking less than that because of the interest in vacations at that time. We do, with this calendar, we would get out of school earlier. That's an advantage for kids looking for jobs, that sort of thing. In terms of the start of the school year, some families may like to take vacation later in August. That might be an issue. Right now, the shows we're having school on Columbus Day. That may be an issue, although we do have a waiver for all the school holidays if we choose to use that. So I'm not presenting this to you as this is what I recommend if we're having an early start day or early start calendar. I'm looking at this more in the sense of this is approximately when if we are going to have an early start calendar, this is approximately when we'd have to start school. And these are some of the issues that we would have to consider. And I would say that I have shared this draft with the employee groups. I've received feedback from the Support Association, not from DGEA at this point. I assume I will soon, but I haven't received it yet. I've shared it with all the elementary school districts. I've received feedback from all of them. It's not consistent in the sense of some think this is fine, some would like to take this approach, some are concerned about it because of the heat, some aren't sure what Hinsdale is going to do, so they want to wait.
Wow, right.
Because we have school districts that seems
both
to
districts.
Yeah.
but they do know about it. And so the one thing this does accomplish is that the students take their final exams and they go on holiday break and they don't studying over the break. They're not concerned about studying over the break. They're on break. Teachers, they'll have to grade their exams sometime, whether they do it over the holiday break or after the holiday break ends officially. That's for them to work with. I'm sure they already find ways to do that now. But there are people that believe that's a true advantage. Another advantage of starting school earlier, as the board is aware, we're now up to well over 30% of our students take AP exams.
Yeah.
This creates an opportunity to have more of the
More
AP curriculum
advanced.
finished before the exams.
That's true.
It leaves less time after the exams. Because that's always a question. Okay, taking the test, what do we do for the last 3 or 4 weeks of the school year?
It's more like 6 weeks.
I'm sure we do good things, but it's sort of anticlimactical since the kids have already taken the exams. There's some things to check on about if we started school earlier. One of our benefits actually start for school year's employees. One of the concerns about the December final exams is, by tradition, we've had a lot of fine arts and other programs, and our fine arts students have been out presenting and showing and performing, and that would have to be reviewed at some level. So there are clearly issues to be dealt with. None, I believe, is insurmountable. None is a showstopper, so to speak. So I guess the question I have, as indicated in the memo for the meeting, is it the board's interest that we just go with the traditional calendar because we're not ready for the early start? Is it the board's interest that they want us to continue looking at this and vetting it with different groups? I will say it hasn't been shared with students and it hasn't been shared with parents. And it's probably important to do.
Yes.
This will affect them. And we can't do that in 2 weeks.
Right. So we have to make the decision on the calendar in 2 weeks?
No.
Oh,
It's going to take a while to do that.
Okay.
We don't have to make it, I don't recall when we made the decision last year, but
It's fairly farther along.
it's further along. We don't have, there's no deadline to make it, in this calendar year or by January. So there's time.
Do you have any idea when the teachers are going to get back to you? I really would like to hear their input.
I don't know, Rick.
Because I've been on the other side of this, and it was teacher-driven to get finals before break. And it was a very positive from a
Interesting.
teacher's standpoint. I think I would like to hear what I would like to hear what the teachers have to say about this, more so than the parents.
I'd also like to hear what, since we share busing with 58 and 68, how do they feel about that? Because that is going to affect the cost of busing if they don't go along with us. They're going to have to pay for the busing on their own.
And vice versa.
At the end, yes.
Right, that's a detail we would have to do, we'd have to research that.
I don't think it'd be astronomical, though.
Yeah, but,
It's a consideration.
It's consideration. It's a budget concern.
There's a lot of pluses to this schedule from an instructional standpoint.
And I'd like to hear from the building principals on how they have dealt with the heat. This gives an extra week, correct? Or is it an extra 10 days?
Well, based on, if you compare the two, one calendar starts on August 29th and one starts on August 17th.
Yes.
Right.
So it's more than a week.
So 2 weeks.
7 days.
Yeah.
We started the 26th, there's 25th.
My first look at this, I was seeing right away where, potentially you could move that start date to the 19th by shifting those days just before Christmas to the following, to the following semester, right? Particularly the, where was it? The 22nd and 23rd of December could be school days, such that we could start on the 19th of August.
Do you want to start on a Friday?
You know what,
There's some, I'm just saying, there's some ways we could potentially help to minimize a little bit of the summer issue.
But your question is whether or not we should go forward.
Yeah, should we?
I'm really looking at tonight at,
so we're going
Got it.
we don't,
Okay.
we're just not prepared to make this change at this point.
Right.
Or it's a good thing to look at it, continue to look at it, we're not prepared. Or B, we don't know yet, give us more information. Or C, I think we should jump in with this and figure it out and come back to us. I think those are different questions.
Right.
But I don't think tonight is the right time to go through all the different details, even though
No,
people have
right.
good ideas. I don't
Right.
discount that. It's just, are we gonna work on this, or is this gonna be for the next superintendent to figure out?
I will say this.
I always said that once.
You've said it often, and you smile a little bit wider every
Yes,
time
I
you say
do.
it.
I too am very interested in hearing what our teachers have to say. From a parent standpoint, knowing that my students could be, and I have 3 of them, could be done with their finals, before the holiday break, and then be able to end that and worry about the start of the next semester when they come back to school, and not worry about having to actually study for finals over holiday break and
Write a paper.
and then the teachers having to do some review things after holiday break as well to get the students ready for.
Right.
I think this is an idea that's the time has come. And I'm very, very interested in us continuing to look at this and hopefully implementing it for next school year. So, but I think it needs to be further vetted for sure, because there could, the devil's in the details. So.
I would choose option B, the further study.
I would go
No.
to a B plus, to a C.
Yeah.
Or I guess a B minus to a C. Because this, of all the questions I've ever asked by parents, this is the question I am often, or most often asked, why do we do this? I've always advocated for us to move it, and I will tell you, and I've only talked to about 30 students about this in general, friends, what if we started earlier? It's so hot, what would you guys do? And every student I've ever talked to, be it a very small amount, would rather sustain the heat than have finals when they come back from.
But I do think we have to be very sensitive to what our feeder districts need and what their concerns are. That's why I was looking at a little more study before we leap into it, particularly the district that has to split students.
Okay, thank you.
And there's time to do that, is what I'm hearing, is that we don't have to adopt this right away, that there's still time.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you need 6 months to study. I'm sure that you could come up with some of these answers sooner than that.
I think Don was next.
I'm in support of further studying this. My concerns are, I think certainly makes sense for the students, but from a parent's perspective, if I have a high school student and a elementary school student who are on different vacation schedules, that makes it very difficult. And then can you please report to us how this might impact athletics? The football team, before school starts is in 2-a-days, and can they start earlier? How does that impact their schedule? And I know probably smaller concerns, but I'd still like to hear.
Those are also concerns.
They're all good concerns.
Yeah, especially in the heat.
Yeah, exactly.
But in general, I think if we think this is the best for our students, which I think we can probably agree on, then that's probably the direction we should go.
Is there anybody who would like to just flat out stay with the traditional schedule? No. So there we have it.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Yay.
Yeah. I'm happy.
Anything else before we move on to reception of visitors?
Nothing from me.
Okay. This is an opportunity for audience members to address the board on any topic pertaining to Community High School District 99. If somebody, okay. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes to provide all visitors an equal opportunity. I think we can keep the, maybe you can have 3.5.
Yeah.
We need your full name. The proceedings may be, and you need to acknowledge that, just so you know, the proceedings may be tape recorded, are being tape recorded for the purpose of producing accurate meeting minutes. And I can modify these circumstances if warranted. So, welcome and please begin.
Thank you. My name is Nihal Isaac. I have contacted the board probably since spring regarding changing the schedule to do semester exams before before the break. I just want to speak to you about what I see with my daughter, and I assure you she's not the only one. She spends probably, I would say, half, if not 3/4 of her Christmas break doing study guides in preparation for finals. In addition to doing the study guides for maybe 5 classes at least, I'm talking a packet. It's not a page, it's not 2-page, 2 pages. It takes a significant amount of time of her break. In addition to that, she's often doing group projects where the kids are meeting several times over Christmas break because the teachers know they have Christmas break. So they assign these projects that are due after break, and so they spend a significant amount of time doing that. Our students are very driven. They are very competitive. They have very full class loads, AP classes, honors classes. My daughter is doubled up in sciences and doesn't even have a lunch. And again, she's not the only one. But that's just an example of the kind of students that we have here, you know, between North and South. They have to manage athletics, they have to manage community service, they have to manage clubs. On top of their academics, some of them are also working during the school year. And I can't tell you enough how much this 2-week break would benefit them. To just be able to completely shut off, recuperate, decompress, de-stress, and come back and start fresh second semester. I would be shocked if it didn't translate into better grades, better listening, better understanding. I really feel so very strongly that it is only the students that can benefit from it. I understand in my discussions with Dr. McDonald over email, the air conditioning is an issue, and I agree with you completely. My daughter and her friends, and I'm sure many others if I were to ask them, are more than willing to put up with some hot days if it means they could just shut off for a solid 2 weeks. And just as an example, I looked at the weather in December. If we had, in August, I'm sorry, if we had started 8 days earlier, 4 of those 8 days, the temperatures, the highs were below 75. So my point in making that, in saying that, is weather is so unpredictable. Please don't base such an important decision for these children on the weather. It could be hot, it could be cold. You know, you just never know. It's so unpredictable. So please don't let the fact that our schools are not 100% air conditioned, you know, determine which of these schedules you choose. I wanted to add about, somebody had made a comment about parents taking vacations. For a good number of our students, they're involved in athletics. Tryouts are the second week of August.
You don't go anywhere. You don't go anywhere.
We don't go anywhere.
We can't take
True.
vacation into the 3rd or
That's
4th week of August because we have to be back for tryouts.
Mhm.
And that's a good chunk. All fall sports, the tryouts are in that second week of August. So
marching
that
band.
partially addresses that. There was also the question, I believe, Dr. McDonald, somebody said, I'm not sure what Hinsdale's doing. I'm not sure, what was that question? I didn't understand that.
We have two of the elementary school districts who send students to us.
And
also send a percentage of their students to Hinsdale District 86.
Okay.
So our start times and vacation times may or may not be different than 86, and so they have to negotiate and choose which schedule they're going to follow. Now, in both cases, a higher percentage of their kids go to 86 than 99. So typically, they would align to 86 if there's a conflict.
I just want to say that District 86 did adopt the new schedule starting this year, where they are having finals before Christmas break. This is the first year that they're doing that. So if we also made that change starting next year, we'd actually be in alignment with them. I also was able to download a study that was done by District 86. And I know it's not our district. I know, you know, it's different, but I know somebody was saying, I wonder what the students would think and what the teachers would think. 67% of the teachers chose to do exams before. Again, that's their district, but I just, you know, how different can ours be? An overwhelming 67%. 9% didn't care either way. And then as far as, you know, the parents, that's the licensed faculty preference, so I'm assuming that's the teachers. The parents, 80% favored it. The students, 87% favored it. And, you know, for the difference, some of them didn't care either way. So don't assume the difference is everybody saying, oh, no, we want the traditional. Some just could care less either way. So if that's any indication of what you're going to find, I agree that I think Mr. Pavinato also said that the teachers were in favor of this, and I really feel that they would be, and I know as far as the students are concerned, I feel they would be too. It's just, I can't even imagine how ecstatic my daughter would be to have 2 weeks, really, because I see what she goes through. I see what she goes through, and she's a senior, so she's a junior, so she's maybe will benefit from it, but I also have an 8th grade son who's at Herrick now, and I guess I'm really doing this more for him and these kids that are coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anything else? Anybody?
Interesting.
Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mike motions, Jerry seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We're adjourned.